a great day, I'm feeling good. Oh, the possibilities of what I could.
What happens when a blind man, a woman of color, and a child of immigrants get together to discuss how diversity, inclusion, and equity affect your business?
I'm moving fast. Oh, I'm optimistic.
Hi everybody, welcome to the Choose Inclusion podcast. I'm UB and I am the Latino white guy of the group.
I'm Nina. I am the woman of color in the group.
And I'm Mike. I'm the blind guy.
All right, welcome back everybody to Choose Inclusion. I'm UB and as always I'm here with the incomparable Mike and Nina. Hello team.
Hi everyone.
Good morning. Excited for today's conversation.
Absolutely. We are too. We all are too, obviously. Very excited. So we want to jump in and I want to introduce Rebekah Mersereau. I think Mersereau, it sounds very I feel like I'm in New Orleans. I like that.
I'm in Canada,
cool.
So it's very
right.
French.
So totally obvious. Yeah, there you go.
Yes.
There you go.
I'm not French though. I don't speak French, but yes, my last name is Mersereau. Yeah.
Mersereau, love it. Hi there. Well, so Rebekah is an inclusive community art instructor. She founded Rebekah Jane Art, and we're really excited, really cool. Rebekah had reached out to us because the work she's doing, and I'm going to let her dive in and talk about it. It's really fascinating. It's one of those things in a year like 2020 where it's a really cool bright spot. And I think that people can take a lot from that, especially our audience, and learn from that. So welcome, Rebekah.
Thank you. So sorry, did you want me to tell you about?
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, I was gonna tell us about what's going on. Like how you got into what you're doing right now.
How I got into, okay, well, I'm an inclusive community art instructor. It started as inclusive art instructor. I added the community part recently. My background is working with children with autism, and I really wanted to start, I felt like I wasn't doing what I needed to do, like I wasn't making a big enough impact. And I didn't feel very fulfilled in what I was doing. Even though the work I was doing was really great, there was just something missing. So I started my business in 2019. So it's been February. So it's been almost 2 years. And I love art. Art's been my safe place my whole life. I love creating. I love painting, everything. So I took that and my passion for working with children with autism and put them together and made an art class for kids with autism. So that became my inclusive art classes. But that wasn't all I wanted to do. My classes did grow. So I have a class called Art is a Spectrum. And now this is a class for kids with autism, but not just for kids with autism. There's every type of person, like everybody is welcome. This is an inclusive class, so everybody is welcome and everybody benefits from this class because everybody benefits from inclusion. And then I have another class for preschoolers where we read a book and then make an art project based off the book. And then I have a class for seniors and a mental health class that I do with a social worker. So all these classes are based under my inclusive community art classes and that I host in my community, my small town. So I started thinking of all these amazing ideas and so many things that I want to do more. Like these are not the only classes that I want to do, but I know that I can't do everything. And my community doesn't necessarily, my community doesn't also need everything. My community definitely needs a lot of support for kids with autism because my job before actually is to help preschooler children with autism get ready for school and life in general. It helps the families and the individual. People actually move all over to come to this program. So there's a very high amount of children with autism in the community already, because people literally do move here from the States and Canada, because it's also a free program for them. So
Wow.
that's a
So I didn't realize that. That's amazing. So I mean, I have like 1,000 things I want to say right now. So I didn't realize that. So the program that you created and started in your community, and we'll talk about the community piece, but there are people moving from all
Oh
over.
no, sorry. That was my job before. I would love
Oh,
for
I
people to
see.
move
I
all
see.
over, but
But they
yeah,
still, but yeah, so then you kind of
because
expanded on the need.
yes, yeah, because I saw
Got
that
it.
there was a lot of children here, like people were moving here, and then after that program was done, they had nothing, right? They were just, once
Right.
they went to school, that was it. So there's a high amount of children with autism in the community, and I saw that need, and so I filled that need with art.
I love it. Well, and
Yeah.
what I love about, because I'm a big music person, and I think, I mean, you mentioned mental health, and I think that's a perfect example because, I mean, creativity, I think, can be almost very like therapeutic in that sense, right? Like I feel people need some way to express themselves, and particularly those who don't express themselves in what people would consider normal.
Yeah.
I think is so important. And I think that's where this really applies to organizations where, because we talk about neurodivergent people, not everybody coming to work in the same way every single day. Like, how do we help them feel safe and give them a way to express themselves that's natural to them? I think all of that is just super fascinating.
Yeah, and it's so cool because, like, I mean, all my classes, like, I have kids that, I mean, there's just, the needs are just so vast. There's kids that, won't touch the clay because it's too, too messy. So then they get gloves, or they have a whole pile of wipes by their hands, but they still make it anyway. Or one day they just decide that they don't mind getting dirty, and then they're digging their hands in the chalk pastels, and so, which is like the messiest of art. And you mentioned music. One of my mental health classes, actually, we did a project based off music, so it was art, music, and mental health all together. It was so fun.
Rebekah, I love what you're doing and how you're doing it too, and I love that you have classes that I could attend, like for preschoolers. So I love that, but I want to hear more of the. just saying. But I'd love to dive in because inclusion is good for everybody. I love that statement. It absolutely resonates with the three of us, and I'm sure our audience. Please talk to me a little bit more about like some of the outcomes that come out of these classes where inclusion is good for everybody in an art way.
Okay, well, because it's kind of a classroom setting in the sense that, we're sitting down to do an art, it's a class. It's kind of letting them, they're coming in and expecting it probably to be class-like, but then they realize that they're actually free to create however they want. I have kids that are spinning around in circles to do their artwork. They take breaks and literally run around the room. They don't have to sit, they can move around. Or if they need to sit and just quietly draw all by themselves, like there's no real rules. So there's a lot of freedom for them. And then it kind of sparks that, because they don't get that at school. There's a lot of rules. And if they do need that freedom of that running around, it's usually them being taken out of the classroom. So they're taken away. And in this case, it's not just kids with autism. So it's inclusion as in everybody who is seeing it and experiencing it. And the kids without autism are also expressing themselves in a similar manner. Like you could walk in the room and not know right? So it's just very freeing. They're able to express themselves through their art and through just like community and connection.
Rebekah, one of the things I think is so interesting about what you are building as an inclusive art instructor is you have 4 different programs as well within it. I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about those programs and what do they do?
So all my classes are built on 4 components or 4 building blocks. So there's inclusion, education, community, and mental health. So all classes have all 4 of those embedded within them. They're all helping with their mental health. They're all inclusive because everybody's welcome, and we're all expected to create an inclusive space. It's which one? Education, because we're learning through the art. We're learning not just about art, but we're also learning things through art. So, like especially in the read and art class, that one's very, very focused on learning. So we learn something about, the space or how an acorn grows or something. So we're learning other things, not just art, but that as well. What was the other one I said? Oh, and then did I say the inclusion one? I got lost.
The mental health one, I think.
Okay, and then the mental health was, so we're all able, like, it's very therapeutic with the art. It's where we talk about mental health and working through our mental health blocks and problems and stuff. So all classes have that focus. So, but each class has a higher focus on one of the 4 blocks. So my preschool class has a higher focus on learning, as I said. So or education. So like I said, we'll read a book that's, we read one not too long ago called Sun. And so we learned about the sun, we learned about how it affects Earth and how space. So we drew a really beautiful picture after with the sun and the solar system. So by doing that and reading about it, which I think reading is an extremely important and useful tool just on its own, but then we pair it with the art and it becomes engaging, right? So we could read something and then that's it. But when we engage with it, then we actually learn something because we're putting it to use, we're asking questions, we're talking about it, there's communication happening. So yes, these are preschoolers, they're ages 2 to 6. So they're already learning so much about everything, from how to hold a pencil to that we live on a planet Earth and it's round and it's, and there's a sun and the sun is 6 billion miles away and stuff. So they might not take all of that information home, but it's started that conversation.
There's one thing you said previously when we were kind of talking in an intro call about how the art can actually adapt to the artist. Like, because I love where you're going with this, and it's I feel like that, so often people have this narrow kind of one path to art in their head, right? Like there's just only one way to do it, when in reality, art is what the artist brings to it. And so it was just amazing. Like, you've probably seen all kinds of styles come out of these children as they interpret what they read into art. Like it's just, that's got to be amazing to see how each individual person interprets that.
Yeah.
How cool is that?
It's amazing. It really is. Yeah. It's really cool because, like, in any class, especially with inclusion, like I can't expect anybody coming into my room to be at the same level. Like I could have, my classes are age specific. So like my preschools are two to 6. And then my art as a spectrum is 7 to 12. So that's a narrow age, but like the abilities, like I could have a kid in that's 12 in my art as a spectrum class, and they can't, do up a button or hold the pencil the right way, or and then I have another 6-year or 7-year-old who is in the same class and they can draw more realistic than a picture. So you get such a wide range in one classroom. Like I would never expect everybody's artwork to look anything the same, because they have totally different experiences, they have different abilities. Like I'm never going to expect everybody in the class to make the same thing. The only limitation I have is what I've literally brought to the classroom, right? So I tell them what we're going to do, I teach them about what the project is, and then I say, but do what you want, so they could make a rainbow in our space class, or you know what I mean? So there's what they make is always different. And I always tell them, like, and celebrate every difference that we have in all of our artwork. Even though we're here to make the same thing, it's always totally different.
And with that, Rebekah, especially when it comes to, because I love the fact all the kids programs, all that, but you do art for, again, because folks that are on the spectrum, they're of all ages, right? And neurodivergence is something that is much more widely acknowledged now than it was before. So when you have call it 18 plus, 16 plus students that are coming into your class, what kind of results are you getting with that age group?
With adults, you
Yes.
mean?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. 18 plus ish.
So I haven't had a class for like adults. I do have a class for older adults, which is 50 plus. It's at a seniors center in town, but I honestly, not very many people on the spectrum have come to that class. So I honestly don't have a lot of experience with adults on the spectrum.
But do you, with the class that from the senior center, what do you notice similarities between the kind of the older adults and the younger kids? Like are there trends and things that you see that where certain things just that transcend age, you know what I mean?
Oh yes. I I mean, I kind of joked not too long ago. I'm like, I provide the same information for my 2-year-olds as I do for my students who are 70. So it's kind of funny. It's just how maybe I'll explain it a little bit differently. Like I'm not bringing a little kid's book to my seniors, but it's the same information I'm just giving them, but it's just presented in a little bit different way, and then they interpret it a little bit differently. But yes, it's almost exactly the same in every single class.
I love that. Well, the one last thing I wanted to talk about a little bit more was the how the opportunity you seized on when bringing this to your community. That I think it's interesting, and I think this happens in organizations too, right? Like people are expected to go where the program is, right? Or they're expected
Right.
to just pick up and make the long journey to the other side of campus or whatever, right? Like they're expected to go to the program, when in reality, that's hard for most people. And so can you talk about why you decided to start Rebekah Jane Art in your community?
Why I started it was more about me, I think. I really wanted to host something that I felt fulfilled in for other people. Like I just really wanted to help people, and I felt like in my previous jobs I couldn't do as much as I wanted. So what I the more I did the classes is the more I realized the impact I was doing. Honestly, when I started, I was like, I'm just doing art classes. Come to my nice little art class. But then as it went on, I was like, oh my gosh, do you see what I just did? Like, what did I create here? And it actually was a lot of backtracking in realizing what I did or what I had created. So it's kind of backwards, I guess, for me.
Well, yeah, and it's just, and I think, that's the thing, I think, right? Like a lot of us start things without kind of understanding what the impact will eventually be. And I think the lesson that I've taken from your experience and what you've done is again, just that, like, these programs, these things that are so important don't have to exist in one place, and everyone else is just expected to come find you,
Mhm.
right? Like, we need
Yeah.
to take these things to where people are, and because sometimes, the people who came to your community for that one particular autism program,
Yeah.
I mean, that was important enough for them, but they all moved. Like, that's a big deal, right? And so
Yeah.
I love that you continued that, one, to continue to provide something to those people who made a huge life decision and a life change. Um, but also, I think people can learn from that. And, like, yeah, why not start creating these programs that, people would go to the big city for previously? Why can't we just create them here at home, in our little
Yeah.
communities? um, and again, I think that's a big lesson that organizations can take away is, there shouldn't be anything stopping organizations from creating these programs where they're needed. I guess is the way I'm kind of thinking about it.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. About my rural community. So I started my classes. I live outside of Fredericton, New Brunswick. So I was doing my classes in Fredericton. But I live outside of Fredericton. I live in Upper Kingsclear. So it's about a 20-30 minute drive to town. So I was actually driving, I was driving 40 minutes to get to my classes, because I thought I have to bring my programs to the people. I have to bring it into town. Nobody will come to see me. Like, why would they come outside of town to see me? But then when COVID hit, I decided I actually had a couple classes in different locations. So I was in 3 different locations for my classes. So there was a lot of travel. Like, there was sometimes where I was in the same, like, one day I was in 2 different locations. So it was a lot of travel, and honestly, it was pretty unnecessary. Like, there was a lot of people that would travel outside of town to see me too. And so when COVID came, I decided to, I mean, I had to stop my classes. So I wanted all my classes in one spot, is really what my goal was in looking for a new space. And I thought, well, why don't I look close by? So I live outside of town. There's a community center not too far away. It's close to my son's daycare. So I went there. They actually had somebody else doing a program. Um, I'm blanking on the name of what it was called, but basically they wanted to have visual minorities reading books to children about visual minorities. So I went and read to them one time, and then I realized that this was a good space. Like, they were already taking action in inclusion, which is very unusual in my area. So I went there and started classes, but before the process of getting into there, it's a government building. So I had to go through all the legal stuff, and they were like, okay, so you're going to meet with the mayor. And I was like, excuse me, the mayor? Like, we have a mayor out here? And I suddenly, yeah,
Yeah,
I
it's amazing.
suddenly, yeah, I was like, oh, wow. So there's a whole community here that I'm forgetting about. And they're like, yeah, there's like 500 or 5,000 people in our community. And then there's the little pockets around us. So I'm actually in Hanwell, because I live in Kingsclear. We're right beside each other, but it's like there's actually nothing in my by my area. So I realized, oh wow, there's this huge market that I'm not even helping right now because I'm going into town. So everybody has to go into town to travel to me. And I realized I'm missing the opportunity of the people right here beside me.
Yeah, that's huge. I love it. And I'm excited to continue this conversation. So this is Choose Inclusion's first crossover episode, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very excited about that. So we're actually going to continue this conversation on Rebekah's podcast. Rebekah, remind me the name of your podcast so people can find it.
Connections Through Creativity.
Perfect. Okay. So we will be continuing this conversation next week. So tune in on December 4th for that. And yeah, let's jump over to your podcast.
Okay, sounds good.
Thanks for listening to the Choose Inclusion podcast. Make sure to subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And you can see closed captioning for this podcast on our YouTube channel. You can find us online on our website, chooseinclusion.com, and contact us on Twitter @ChooseInclusion.